Peter, it's really exciting news for first home buyers. You know, they really sort of struggle to put together a deposit, which is generally a minimum of 10%. Under this scheme that the Morrison government is proposing, it means that they'll only need to have a 5% deposit. So that's potentially, with all the other concessions that are available throughout the various states in Australia, going to save them tens of thousands of dollars to help them get into the market.
All right, so tell us exactly how that works, because there'll be a lot of people sitting at home thinking, okay, how do we take advantage of this? So are we talking, what sort of money would they need on, say, a $500,000 property?
For example, in a $500,000 property, which is a nice easy figure, thank you for giving me that one, generally you would need a 10% deposit of
50 grand, yeah.
And what the federal government is proposing is that you need to have the $25,000 saved, and then the balance of that they're going to guarantee. They haven't rolled out the full details of the scheme. It's actually kicking off in January next year.
Yep. Yep. And so on a state level as well, so this is really important, first home buyers will also benefit from a stamp duty concession offered by state governments, and in some states, councils are also giving a rebate on rates. How important is it to get young people and first home buyers into the market?
Look, you know what, I'm sure, speaking as a parent,
yes,
you know, you and I would both agree that, you know, we want to see our kids get ahead. So it's really tough for a lot of young people to actually save that sort of money to actually get those deposits. So this is a really tremendous incentive that's going to make that great Australian dream that's quite overwhelming for a lot of first home buyers possible. And you know, the great thing that all the states are doing as well is they're kicking in and they're giving stamp duty concessions. So Sydney is a terrific example of this. You know, unfortunately in Sydney, 500,000 doesn't buy you a lot, but you know what the state government in New South Wales is doing is for anyone purchasing up to $650,000, they don't actually have to pay stamp duty. And some councils, like in Queensland, the Brisbane City Council, they're actually giving a rebate on council rates as well. So, you know, all those things I think are really tremendous news for young first home buyers.
What about units, Christine? I see units are projected to increase in value over the next few years. There's been a bit of a glut, for example, in Brisbane, but that's an opportunity for first home buyers.
Do you know, Peter, I'm really glad you mentioned that about units, because there's actually, I was reading an article this morning to say that there's less cranes on the Brisbane skyline at the moment, and that's actually bringing a lot of buyers back into the market. What we're actually seeing performing very well at the moment is a lot of the inner city apartments in some of those smaller, old, you know, 1960s six-packs, people going in, doing a reno. So there is definitely a drive, and we're seeing a spike at the moment of, you know, those first home buyers looking at units to get into the market.
It's fantastic news, isn't it? All right, now it's Spring Racing Carnival time. I'm going to ask you for your Melbourne Cup tip in a minute, but first up, take us through, why is spring such a great time to sell your home?
Well, look, it's actually, would you believe, very sporting driven. You know, we have a lot of people focused on the football and sport during winter. Things tend to sort of soften a little bit over winter. And as you and I have been noticing as we've been doing this report every week, we've been watching the clearance rates go up and up and up every week, which is great. And last weekend in Melbourne, they had the highest number of properties auctioned in over a year. And the key driver, according to CoreLogic, is actually the Spring Racing Carnival, would you believe? Because as from this weekend, most people in Victoria are actually going to be very focused on the Spring Racing Carnival. So there's actually a traditional push for people to get their properties on the market before then.
Now, the clearance rate in Sydney was nearly 80%. Now, that compared to 45% for the same time last year. Things are really picking up.
It's a great sign, Peter, and you know, in fact, CoreLogic has noted that clearance rate in Sydney last weekend was the strongest that they've had since 2017.
Wow.
Which
Amazing.
is great.
Melbourne's 77% clearance rate?
Yes, again, and Again, according to CoreLogic, that was the biggest volume of auctions that they've seen for the year pre-Cup week.
Brisbane 46%. Now that's up on 30% for the same time last year.
That is a great result as well, and we're seeing really strong results across the Brisbane market.
Adelaide 68%.
That's exactly right, and again, that is a 10% increase on auction clearance rates last year.
Perth 43.5%.
Exactly, and Canberra, not to forget Canberra, they had 55.6, so really great results across the nation last week.
So there's plenty going on, and we did mention the Spring Racing Carnival. Now, I know that your family is very heavily into the racehorses. Tell us your tip for this Tuesday's Melbourne Cup.
Murder Cafe.
Now, that's a Japanese horse. As you know, I do keep an eye on the racehorses, and it was very impressive. And of course, we saw a Japanese horse win the Cox Plate. All right, Christine, when I next talk to you, we will be counting our cash when the Japanese horse wins the Melbourne Cup. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Peter.